Hi everyone, my name is Eric, and if you feel like your prayer life is getting tedious, boring, and that you're not getting anything out of it, or that you're not getting anywhere, then this is the video for you. Welcome to my channel, everyone. I am the Investigative Millennial, and today we are going to be talking about prayer. Now, let's be honest. If you're a Christian and you go to church regularly, you're probably going to hear a lot of people just saying, we'll pray about it, keep this person in your prayers, and a lot of the time we forget to do it by the time we get home. Or even if we do pray, we probably just pray once, and it can turn into somewhat of a formality. At least for me it does. There are exceptions, but a lot of the time this type of attitude and behavior is quite common. Now, as Christians, we do know that prayer is something that we're supposed to do. But I'll be honest, in many cases, in the past, I used to just be bored and I'd be checking my phone, and a lot of other things of that nature, of distractions, would always just prevent me from doing it. And in many ways, I think that either consciously or unconsciously, a lot of this stems from the belief that we don't really believe that prayer really works or makes much of a difference. So today, I'm going to try and help you change that. I'm not saying you'll be able to turn God into a genie with unlimited wishes, but at the same time, here are 10 things that you may be doing that may be hindering your prayer's efficacy. Number 1 is unforgiveness. Now, we see this principle of unforgiveness hindering prayers very clearly in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11, verse 20 through 26. This is Mark's version of when Jesus curses the fig tree, but he says something very interesting in this particular Gospel about prayer and even miracles. In the morning, as they, the disciples and Jesus, went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. Peter remembered and said to Jesus, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed has withered." "Have faith in God," Jesus answered. "Truly, I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you and your sins." Forgiveness is a very important tool. Number 2 is neglecting the poor. Proverbs 21 verse 13 says, "Whoever shuts their ears to the cry of the poor will also cry out and will not be answered." Now, I'll freely admit, I'm still figuring out this one and the exact kind of balance, and how much I should give, when I should give, what I should give, and different things like that. I'm by no means a perfect person on this at all. I'm flawed. The only boundaries that I would say with regards to this that I can definitively say are 1 Timothy 5:8, which says that if you do not provide for the needs of your immediate family and your own relatives, then he has denied the faith and is worse than a non-believer. That's Paul's words in 1 Timothy 5 verse 8. So do enough to take care of your family. There is a lot of discussion. It's probably not going to be exactly the same from person to person, given that we all have different financial situations and Maybe some are called to be more generous, and different things like that. So, but bottom line is, it has to be on your radar. The poor have to be on your radar. You can never say, oh, well, nah, I don't care about them. Oh, well, too bad. No. Unless you want your prayers to be ignored, that's not an option. Number 3 is a little more broad, but it says, if anyone turns a deaf ear to my instruction, even their prayers are detestable. Other translations say, it is an abomination. So, if you, again, let's be clear about what this is saying. It's not saying anybody who struggles with sin or has temptations or anything like that. That's not what it's talking about. It says, if anyone turns a deaf ear, as in, you basically say, yeah, I don't care about that commandment, I don't care about this, I don't care about that, I don't care about this instruction, that's fine. I'm not talking, that's when this condition applies. Now, in the book of James, it does confirm this interpretation of mine when it says that Elijah was a man of like passions, just as we are, but his prayers were still held up as someone who was righteous and effective. So, it's not talking about having, desires or even, slipping up or different things like that. But, so if you are just simply saying, I don't care about that command, or at least you put it on the back burner, well, then don't be surprised if, again, your prayers are going to be hindered. The next thing, and this is really big, is you have to pray continually. You can't just pray one time about one thing. It's not going to have a very big rate of success, shall we say. And this is shown in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18. Then Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. He said, in a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, grant me justice against my adversary. For some time he refused. But finally he said to himself, even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually come and attack me. And the Lord said, listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth? Praying very persistently is something that is needed. And when all of these things are combined, and we're going to get to other things that can hinder your prayers, but just this stuff alone, already, if you are not praying continually, if you keep thinking that, again, if you keep having bitterness, unforgiveness, a lack of care for the poor, or unrighteous living, or things like that, then it's just going to create a big cycle of this. It's going to create a big cycle of, well, clearly this doesn't work, and your experiences are going to, influence your judgment and opinion on this, and then it's going to severely impact your capacity to believe. And that leads us into the fifth point, which is unbelief. Now, I saved this one for number 5 because the truth of the matter is, so many people keep thinking, well, I believe this is going to work. Or if you are constantly beaten down with discouraging experiences with prayer, well, then you can't tell me that's not going to influence you. which is why I wanted to give hope to everybody beforehand, that when you couple all of these things, it can increase your confidence so that later, when you pray, you can, in a sense, have a bit of a clean slate. If you've been doing any of these things while praying, the things I've mentioned, then you have been doing it wrong. So if you wipe the slate clean and say, okay, Lord, I'm going to get this right, then you can go forward and try to have more renewed confidence that this time things can be different. And what I'd recommend praying first, of course, is, Lord, is there anything that is hindering what we want to, that's hindering our relationship or our connection? Is there anything? And he'll show you that. Because again, in the book of James, chapter 1, it says he gives generously to those who ask for wisdom, and he'll grant it to you. And again, a lot of this same wisdom, I asked for it, and again, he pointed out many different things that could hinder prayer to me. And again, if you ask, it says you ask for that wisdom with faith, because it says if you're doubting and everything else, it literally says don't expect to receive anything from God. So unbelief is a big thing. It can be frustrating, but in some cases you can try to just maybe start praying even just for 2 minutes. And then just 2 minutes a day, or heck, 2 minutes every 2 days, or start off with something small, and don't expect immediate results, like God will just download the information into you. Just pray that he would show you. A lot of the time he'll show you through videos, through people, many different things like that. But don't expect immediate results, because again of Luke chapter 18, but expect results nonetheless. Now the book of James says, and this is number 6, that you have not because you ask not. So some people just don't ask, but also he says you ask but you don't have because you ask with wrong motives, so that you'll just spend it on your lusts. And lest you get the wrong idea, this isn't just talking about like sexual stuff or anything like that. It can refer to that, but it's referring to other things, like other sins, like pride. Like let's say you pray for, a house that I want to have like this big mansion or something, and your motive is just to prove everybody wrong or something, that they said you'd never amount to anything like that, and you want a house to prove them wrong, or you want this for some type of, or you want something to get revenge on somebody, or many different things. You can ask for something with wrong motives. So the truth of the matter is that a lot of the time you have to first of all ask yourself, why am I asking for this? Now, here's the thing. If you want something just for the sake of enjoying it because you'd like to have it, there isn't anything wrong with that per se, but you also need to make sure that that same thing won't take you away from God or cause you to do anything. You can just pray that, Lord, if this thing is going to hinder me from doing something that you want me to do, then just let me know or something. And I'm going to talk about how God answers prayers, because a lot of the time God may answer prayers through a process. That's what's going to be talked about after we get to the end of this list. Now, number 7 is that 1 John 5 says, if we pray and ask anything according to his will, we have confidence that he hears us. Now, you might ask, well, wait a minute, how do I know what God's will is? Well, that's another answer. Again, going back to James, which says, asking for wisdom. And that can be one way, of course, but you also have to remember that while God has his general will, like, for example, in 1 Thessalonians, it says it's his will that you abstain from sexual immorality. It's also his will that you believe in the Lord or Jesus Christ, that he's not willing that any should perish, so that is his will. There's also specific wills and callings. Certain people are called to have certain gifts, but others are not called to this specific gift, so there is a specific will. So you do have to ask for wisdom and pray and continue, and again, we'll talk about more of how to do that, but you have to make sure that it's, first of all, within his general will. Ask for, like, a whole bunch of prostitutes, you're not going to get that. Sorry. Number 8 is in the book of James chapter 5. It says in many ways that if anybody is in trouble, they should pray. It also extends this to any among you who is sick. And it says that the elders of the church, they all gather before you and anoint you with oil, but also that it said that if they've committed any sins, let them be forgiven. And it goes on to say that you confess any sins that you have, that you've committed, so that you may be healed. So God may, if you are inflicted with an illness, and I'm not saying all illnesses are due to sin, no, that's not the case. But in some cases, if there is sin, it may be keeping you from being healed. Number 9 is actually you can pray with a community of believers. Now, I'm not saying you can't pray alone. Again, obviously you can pray alone and still be very effective. But again, sometimes, again, being in a community of believers and you all praying for the same thing, not only can it edify everybody if they participate, but a lot of the time when you do pray in groups, it can be encouraging to you, it can increase your confidence, and it can seriously help you in order to have more effective prayers. And number 10, the last thing, the 10th and last point that we're going to go over about things that can hinder your prayers is 1 Peter 3 verse 7, which states that husbands must be considerate of their wives and not be harsh with them, so that nothing will hinder their prayers, which obviously means that if they are, they will be hindered. Now, those are the 10 things, but on things that can hinder getting answers to prayer. But there is one other thing I want to talk about, that is how to recognize answers to prayer specifically. It's not always easy, but one big tip that I can give you is that God is not Amazon. He is not somebody who, like, if you're asking for something in the natural that you can actually do something about, he will help you, but he is not an Amazon delivery person who you place your order, you sit on your butt, and 5 days later, your package comes. That's not how it works. The only times when he usually does things like that are if you ask for a miraculous healing, in which case the doctors couldn't cure it. Not always, but he does, a lot. But one thing that you have to be absolutely careful of is just, well, I'm not going to do anything about it. Like, let's say you're praying for a wife or husband. Well, there may be circumstances and things in your specific character or habits that you might need to change that can, first off, that will make you more pleasant to be around, quite frankly. Also, you can go in and you can go search on either dating coaches, dating websites, or possibly just getting out more. in many cases. So, and pray for resilience to keep doing that and keep looking. And if God does something miraculous, fine. But don't just sit around, because in many cases, God does ask that you do, He does, on some level, asks you to participate. When Hannah, the mother of the prophet Samuel, was desperate for a kid, for a child, even though the prophet asked him, the prophet who was there said, yes, the prayer will be, I pray that the Lord will grant you what you wanted, she still went and she had sex with her husband. It literally says that in verses 19 through 20 of the first chapter. And then she became pregnant. Now, if she had just sat on her butt like an Amazon like waiting for an Amazon package, would she have gotten that kid? Well, I mean, we know that God can do something like that, but a lot of the time He won't do something like that. She still, at the end of the day, had sex and did the natural thing. It didn't work the 10,000 other times she tried it beforehand, but a lot of the time, again, He does ask for some level of participation. And there can be a journey. There can be, in many ways, there can be character development you may need in order to have this, and it may this specific blessing, and it can take work. Or in some cases, when you're praying for something, like I, for example, once prayed that I would be able to prophesy, but when I was asking for that, the Lord showed me a lot of different things that are downsides to being a prophet. Like, a lot of people will hate you in many cases. You're going to have to go up and deliver messages in many cases. Now, and that's a big responsibility. And honestly, I'm not even sure that I want that. I'll say, I'm totally fine if He doesn't. So, always be conscious and be aware of people who God sends into your life, because at the end of the day, God does use people many times. So please, don't just treat God like Amazon. Ask for your blessing. If He does miraculous things that are undeniably supernatural, great. But don't sit on your butt with complacency. So I hope this all helped you. I know it's by no means a comprehensive thing about prayer, but these are the things that I've learned. I'm by no means infallible or complete in my knowledge, but again, this is what I shared, and hopefully it can help you. So if you like this, subscribe, give it a like, and comment your thoughts and questions, and I'd love to hear from you. God bless.